Flow state's hard to break down and kind of like understand, right?
How did you slow it down like that?
I don't know.
Do you know?
That's the question.
Key,
Yeah, that's the question we try to figure out.
Everything is changing in life. Everything except flow state. It's always the same.
Asked them all how they got there, and every one of their answer was, yeah, I don't know.
To actually get into it and stay in it, I think looks different from person to person. And I think that's what you and I are going to explore and find when it comes to how different individuals' brains are actually operating to get them to shift into that flow state.
And we have the formula. Okay, 2025, here's the deal. Let's get after it. Resolutions, throw them out. Let's make habits that last. So whether it's powering through workouts, recovering faster, or just feeling like the best version of yourself, your health starts at the cellular level. Check it out. I didn't even understand this, of how important this is. And that's where MitoPure comes in. So MitoPure is no ordinary supplement. It's a precise dose of the rare postbiotic urolithin A, scientifically proven supercharged to your mitochondria, aka the cell's powerhouses. So think of it as hitting a reset button on your cellular health, clearing out the old and making way for the new. 2025 is the new. So with regular habitual use, you'll feel the difference in improved energy levels to tackle each day with confidence, stronger, more efficient workouts, faster recovery, so you can do it all over again tomorrow. And the science doesn't lie. MitoPure is the only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate cellular health, delivering double-digit gains, muscle strength, and endurance, even without changing your exercise routine. Yeah, you heard it right. The science meeting performance. So, exclusive offer, unlock your full potential 2025 right here, right now, the week of January 6th and 20th. Timeline is offering an incredible 33% off to my listeners of ordering MitoPure. So check out timeline.com/DavidNurse33 to claim your 33% off discount. That is timeline.com/DavidNurse33. Your cells are waiting and your best year starts now. Rachel, what is flow state? The people want to know. Tell me about flow state. Let's try to talk about it. Let's talk about it from the macro level, and let's keep dialing in on the micro of what flow state actually is.
When I think of flow, and I know when you and I first met, right, there's so many ideas of what flow state is these days. And we know that we have the Stephen Kotler triggers, and there's really still not a lot of research on what do we need to do to get into flow? What is flow, right? Because different people, I think of flow differently. It also depends whether you're in a creative element or a sport element or a CEO element, right? And so flow in general, I think, is also encompassing how well we are stepping into whatever it is that is in front of us, whether it's a sport or a creative element or you're a musician or what have you. So all that to be said, when you and I were talking about flow, we're talking about the formulaic way in which to get into it. Okay, because ultimately flow is good when it's this idea like, oh, flow state sounds so cool. I want to perform better. I want to have a heightened state of focus and sustain it longer. But how are you actually going to do that when it goes into this idea? So flow, I mean, by definition, right, is you're just all encompassed in whatever it is that you're doing, and everything else around you goes away, and you feel so dialed into that moment that things become easier, and time just kind of dissipates around you. To actually get into it and stay in it, I think looks different from person to person. And I think that's what you and I are going to explore and find when it comes to how different individuals' brains are actually operating and the plasticity or lack thereof that they're experiencing to get them to shift into that flow state.
That is what we are doing, ladies and gentlemen, people of the jury. It is finding how to tap into flow state more regularly and stay in longer. So to better understand all of this, I think we need to introduce people to the 5 different main brain waves So when we start talking about this flow code study of up-regulating delta, down-regulating alpha, it's not a foreign language. So what are the 5 waves, and what does each one of them focus on?
Yes. So as a neurospecialist, I look at brainwaves like speeds of a vehicle, right? Ultimately, you want to be going the right speed at the right time so that you can show up and be your best self. It absolutely is not going to serve you to go 20 miles an hour down a main highway, and it's not going to feel good to be going 90 miles an hour down a side street. You need to be getting into the right speed with whatever it is that you're doing in front of you. So the brainwaves that we look at are in 5 different categories. Think about it ranging, my car is off to my car is going 150 miles per hour. So delta is the slowest, deepest brainwave that our brain naturally produces. Delta as a rhythm is very slow, but most of delta encompasses sleep, falling asleep, staying asleep, cycling through our sleep stages so that we can wake up and feel refreshed. Our immune system turns on when we're in a delta state. Lots of cellular regeneration happens. So delta is critical, and we know that sleep is our superpower. Shifting up to theta. Theta is the feeling of going 20 to 30 miles an hour in your vehicle, right? I'm feeling calm, I'm creative, I feel dialed in, I feel slow, I can hold space for significant others. We have to have a great amount of theta and a harmonious amount of theta so that we can feel calm enough in the midst of stress or whatever is going around us, but we're not feeling overly calm, distracted, not, figuring out details around us or not paying attention to certain elements that are important. So theta, I look for relative balance when it comes to brainwaves. Moving up into alpha, think of alpha like neutral, right? So what are we doing in neutral? We're ready. We're ready to upshift. We're ready to downshift, but ultimately we're idling, right? So how well does our brain idle? And then how well does our brain shift, which really is representative of that neurological plasticity and flexibility that we want our people to be doing best and is going to be happening when their brain is more flexible with this flow protocol. Moving up into the betas, there's a couple different speeds of beta. Think about it like highway speeds ranging 60 to 90 miles per hour. Okay, so when you're on the highway, you're cruising, you're getting stuff done, you're feeling alert. I have good energy, I have good focus. I look at beta like natural coffee, right? Most people love them some coffee, love them some caffeine, right? So how can our brain shift into beta and stay in beta so we have really sustainable energy that's not frantic or anxious or disorganized? Then we move up into high beta. High beta is going to be associated with that super fast, overactive production of brainwave activity. So think of high beta like 150 miles per hour. I'm anxious, I'm hypervigilant, I'm impatient, I'm moving too quick, I'm rigid, I'm stressed. Never going to serve us to be in or stay in that state. So we definitely want to downregulate that, especially when we're trying to access a flow state. And then we have gamma. Gamma is a fun brainwave to learn about. Gamma is one of the hardest brainwaves to tap into, but it's associated with a heightened level of conscientiousness, alertness, or just performance in general. So oftentimes we see a very low production of gamma wave activity in clients' brains and just kind of in brains in general. And so optimizing the brain's ability to shift into gamma is 100% going to help with conscientiousness and performance.
Whoa. Okay. So interesting. And interesting that people don't have any idea how to train different waves of the brain, get into different ones. Literally, like the analogy you're using with the car is phenomenal. That makes a ton of sense. Now, what is the brain like? What does it look like when a brain that you have seen working with, some of the top athletes literally in the world in the past 20 years? What does a brain look like as close to this flow state, I guess, with all these different waves? What would it be? What is the cocktail of these different brain waves that you want to get to?
A couple things, right? Each one of us, there's no perfect brain. There's no exactly ideal brain that's going to do things the exact same way to get them into flow state, which is what's so cool about this hypothesis that we have. So that flow state for a creative and how they get into it might look different than flow state for a professional athlete. Maybe even it looks different for a quarterback versus a running back. What does flow state look like for them? And so that's the really cool thing about what we're doing is we're saying, hey, let's really personalize this and make it really concrete for all individuals to be able to access that when they have information on how their brain is working. So if we boil it down into a really faster brain versus a brain that's a little bit more calm, right? Different dispositions. What it looks like from an flow state for us is just this kind of idea of a solid formula of brainwaves. Okay, so from my experience, it depends on whether or not we're working with an NFL quarterback or whether or not we are working with a musician on what flow state's going to look like for them. Because for some people, having excess amounts of theta, which is that really calm, creative brainwave, is going to make them slow the game down or slow everything down that they need so well that they don't miss a beat on the field. Their accuracy goes up. Their ability to kind of feel the musical instrument goes up, right? So when we have more theta for some individuals, that's great, versus for other individuals where they might need to be thinking quicker, moving faster physiologically, potentially having some excess beta is going to be more helpful for them. So I think in general, we have an idea of this sense of what we think that these brainwaves would look like more holistically from a hypothesis standpoint, having great amounts of theta, right? Because ultimately we know that we can't be stressed out or frantic or overthinking or ruminating when we're trying to access flow.
Okay, so remind us, theta is which part of it? Theta is the...
slow, I think 20 to 30 miles per hour.
20 to 30, okay, yep. Perfect.
I'm calm and cool and collected.
Okay. We want a lot of that. We want a lot of that. I'm pouring into this cocktail. Want a lot of that theta. Okay.
Dose of theta. Yep. I think what we're thinking is a little bit of good background alpha, but not too much, right? Because alpha, right, is idling. We don't necessarily want to idle when we're in flow, but having a little bit of flexibility so that our brain can shift is important. So just a splash of alpha.
Splash of alpha.
Great amounts of low beta. So then we're in an alert state. We're in a conscious state. We have good energy. It's not frantic energy. It's not anxious energy. It's just that nice, sustainable, crisp, clean. I feel good. I feel dialed in. So 2 splashes of good beta. No high beta. So we're gonna clean everything up, take all the high beta out, get our cup all, washed and beautiful. Get all the junk out, and then maybe a little splash, some bitters of some gamma.
Oh, good. Okay, I like it. Okay, where's the delta at? Is that just optimizing delta because that is the sleep? Like, is that to get into flow, are we saying like, hey, delta has to be ideal? Is that fair to say?
Delta, yes, we want our clients' brains and people that are going to go into our study to be having great sleep hygiene, where they're getting really restorative sleep, they're waking up with high levels of readiness. Absolutely. Delta, as far as stepping into flow, not one of the main brainwaves that we're going to focus on, because we definitely don't want excess delta present when people are trying to focus, because that's going to create some grogginess and some lack of ability to stay dialed in.
Makes sense. Okay, so that one will be low. Like delta is low. Okay. This is so good. This is creating the cocktail. This is essentially what we are going to show, like Rachel's been alluding to in the Flow Code, the first ever study that shows how to, basically tap into this more regularly, stay in it longer, a formulaic way to get into flow state, which I think everybody wants, whether they're an athlete, whether they're just somebody. Flow is living in your best life, your best day. You're essentially who you're created to be. So here's the $1 billion question. Why can't people replicate when they get into flow state, or even know, like high level athletes that, we've both spoken to, and like, they just don't know how they get in there. Why is that, do you think?
I look at just lack of adaptability, right? If your brain is lacking flexibility or lacking the adaptability that we know it's capable of having, you are going to struggle ultimately feeling in control of it, right? So a flexible, adaptable brain is going to be one that's trained, right, which we can do with different exercises and the different protocols that we have, then just like your body, you're training your mind to be having higher levels of endurance and strength and resilience. And so ultimately, now I'm biased. I just think that we walk around and the lack of flexibility that all of us are living with from a neurological potential standpoint is vast. And part of that is, to your point, lack of education. People don't know that you can train your brain. Also, part of training your brain involves kind of surrendering control, right? Versus we can go to the gym, we can go push some weights around, we can go to Orange Theory, we can go to CrossFit, whatever. And we feel like as individuals, we're doing something, right? Which we are, right? Those are very active exercises for us to do. To take a passive component sometimes and train your mind, which involves some stillness, almost goes against the grain of how our society is wired. So people maybe have a hard time creating that quiet space for them to just actually put in the work to train their mind and train their brain. And so I think that's also part of it, is just lack of education, but lack of willingness to do the things that feel against this human nature of go, 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 do.
So good. Well, I mean, I kind of put the analogy of, if someone's working out and dialed in, let's say you're a bodybuilder, you want the perfect, the best body. You have a plan that you're sticking to with your workouts, with your weights. You know what the plan is, all the macros you're putting into your body in the nutrition sense. So it's an actionable plan to get to that point. Now with flow state, I mean, if you're a bodybuilder, you're not just going to say like, hey, I'm going to wing it. Like, sometimes I hit the day and hit my macros right, but I have no idea. This is the same thing for flow state with the mind that's never been done before, of actually knowing how you can get in there. And we have the formula. I'm not going to tell you what the formula is right now because it's coming out. I'm going to tell you, just teasing it out a little bit. So right now, the gold standard is Stephen Kotler's 22 cues. Mihály and Csikszentmihályi introduced it in the 80s. The cues are some of them like go for a walk or challenge yourself 3% higher than you normally are right now. He also talks about it has to be a struggle. I totally disagree. I think there's so much that's not known that we are going to uncover here together in the Flow Code. So this is amazing. All right. Is there anything else that you think the audience needs to know about flow as we, we'll continue to do these as we continue to, share the research that we're finding in this scientific accredited study? Is there anything else you think that, needs to be outlined in flow or defined or, spoken to?
I mean, David, we could probably talk all day long about it, right? Nerd out on all things brain health and flow state. You just made me think about too, just how we just don't really know exactly how we're showing up and how to access flow. And I talk about that all the time, right? Mental health and brain health and our brain is one of the only organs that we do not measure before we do anything to, right? So think about even sleep. Before the Oura Ring and the Whoop and all these awesome sleep trackers came out, people didn't really know, like, unless they're going to go do a deep sleep study, it's more subjective. I think that I'm sleeping well, maybe I'm sleeping good, I'm feeling kind of good in the morning. But now there's all this really amazing information where you can actually measure sleep and measure readiness and measure RIN. And so information in and of itself is empowerment. And so that's what I love about what we're doing is we're taking a quantitative approach to flow. Everybody looks a little bit different. And so what can you do and how can you take control over your own brain health? One of the most beautiful organs that we have at our disposal that is completely untapped. And as we start to create measurements around that, right, the world is going to be everybody's oyster when it comes to mental health and longevity and biohacking and all of these amazing things that I think kind of is next phase for health and what we're venturing in.
Love it. And you guys are doing this at Braincode Centers. This is the neurofeedback, the training that you guys are doing to be able to upregulate, downregulate brainwave. Like this is going on currently right now as we speak at your Braincode Centers, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work with tens of thousands of clients training their brain, helping them regulate these brainwaves and change these brainwaves through tools, right? Just like the Aura Ring, there's ways to actually measure EEG potential. And so you're able to do that and up and down regulate these different brainwaves, which so many people don't even know that you can do. So while yes, my company is very mental health focused, it's absolutely a population when it comes to flow state and peak performance and professional athletes and CEOs of companies that, hey, if you want to get 1, 2, 3, 4% better, you can go to the gym, you can have all the nutrition and all of the, skills and awareness that you want to get yourself to the next level. But I do believe some of the biggest limitations, which we know, right? What are all golfers doing right now? They're training their mind. They're not going out to, hit more and more repetitions on the greens or on the fairway, right? They are literally training their mind and training their heart rate and getting their physiological potential so tapped in that then when they go out on tour, it's game over. It's the same thing with all of us, trying to get that 1, 2, 3% better. And that's right here between our ears.
Beautiful. Okay. So I'm listening. I'm like, oh, I want to train my brain. What am I doing? I have to come in person. Can I do virtual? Where can I find more information about what you are already doing at Braincode Center?
Yeah, follow us on Instagram. Go check it out. If somebody really wants to learn to take it to the next level, you can absolutely go on the website, fill out an inquiry. You'll meet with myself or my VP just to learn a little bit more about the program. And yeah, we can take it from there.
Beautiful. All right. That is a prequel to the Flow Code, what Rachel Lambert and I are doing together. Buckle up. It's coming. Cool. Thank you, Rachel. You rock.
Thank you, David.
All right, so flow state. What is it? Why is it so important? And why am I so excited about the future of it in this flow code study that I'm embarking on? So Dr. Rachel Lambert, my partner in the flow code study, neuroscientist out of Denver, who you just heard from, broke down a lot of what we're going to be doing and, some background on flow state. I really think it's an interesting thing, right? I hear it a lot, whether it's professional athletes, high performers, just people in their normal day. Am I in my flow? Do I have flow? This flow word gets thrown around there a lot. So I wanted to really, break it down for all of you to know what it's about, know what it is, go to some studies. I'm going to pull from some studies. I'm going to pull from Stephen Kotler, Mihály, Csikszentmihályi, Yale. Tough name to pronounce. Maybe be in flow to pronounce that name. But let's first start with what flow is, because I think it's so much more than just the, in the zone, the high performance that people might attribute it to. And flow is essentially, it's a gateway to adventure. It's a gateway to adventure and joy. Flow is the ultimate state of being. It's an effortless connection to a higher purpose and a deeper joy. Let that sink in. Flow is an ultimate state of being, an effortless connection to a higher purpose and a deeper joy. Oh, it's the calling to adventure where life becomes more than just movement. It becomes meaning. So what that means is we're not just going through the motions. We're not just, on this mundane, just hamster wheel of life. It's an adventure. And it's a calling to adventure. It becomes more than just the movement, the everyday movement. It is a meaning. Flow allows us to align with a higher power, seamlessly living out our purpose with, here's the key, effortless effort. Effortless effort. You're going to hear me say that a lot. That is what flow is. Flow is calling and conscious to adventure. Flow is a dance with the now. Run that one back. Flow is a dance with the now. Its life's bounty is in flow. That's where it's found. Life's bounty is found in flow. Flow is mastery. Flow is ultimately perfect love. So I embarked on this flow state journey to find out how to tap into flow state more regularly and stay in it longer, because it's just kind of been one of these things that I've been fascinated with over the years of training professional athletes. And I'll ask them, like some of the highest level athletes, it's Michael Chandler, MMA, or a multitude of NBA players, Allison Felix, gold medal track. And I'll just say, hey, you know what? Like, how did you get into flow? Because they'll tell me, they're like, yeah, I was in flow. I was just feeling it. Like Mike Chandler said, hey, I saw his feet moving before they moved. I knew where to swing. Or basketball players said, I wasn't even thinking. I was just free. Every shot was going in. I was in the flow state. Allison Felix said she was in it 3 times. She remembers 3 times in her life. I asked them all how they got there, and every one of their answer was, yeah, I don't know. How is that possible? How can nobody know actually a way to tap into flow state more regularly and stay in it longer? Now, I know there's this novel effect where it's not going to be something that you can always be in. And I know some people will say flow is not a thing. It just is. That's not a good answer. It actually is a thing. You can study it in the brain. Is what I and Rachel Lambert are doing with the flow code study. We are studying the different brain waves, the beta, theta, gamma, delta, alpha waves, and how to uptrain and downtrain adrenaline and regulation in these 2 different types of studies. So we're currently in this really, really cool IRB scientifically approved study that will come out later this year with results for how to tap in more regularly and stay in longer. That's, you're going to hear me continue to say that theme. That's kind of the key here. So let's jump into some studies and see what flow, what's out there right now on flow state. So this study is the role of locus coeruleus in attention and arousal by Gary Aston Jones and Jonathan D. Cohen, published in Progress in Brain Research 2005. So what they found is locus coeruleus, the LC, is a primary source for norepinephrine in the brain and plays a crucial role in modulating attention, arousal, and behavioral flexibility. Now, what am I saying? That is kind of what, how to focus. That's where the focus part of the flow is. Found that attention regulation, the study discusses how the LC, locus coeruleus, the system influences attention by modulating signal to noise ratios and neural processing, thereby affecting sensory perception and cognitive performance. Just a really fancy way of saying your senses are attached to your cognitive thoughts and performance. Did they find anything on flow? No, not really. Just kind of showing where it was in the brain and in the LC, the locus coeruleus nucleus in the brain stem is where a lot of this focus and flow takes place. It's got more of a scientific aspect there, right? All right, I'll jump into another one. And this study is published in Neuropsychologia, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. It's titled Creative Flow as Optimized Processing. Now, this was a group of jazz professionalists, and they were experts and non-expert musicians. It took place at Drexel University Creative Research Lab, examining these jazz guitarists of varying experience levels as they improvise to understand how to experience the brain activity that contributes to the flow experience. This is one of the most, like when they say flow state research projects done, this is one of the leading ones out there. So here's what they found: the expertise and flow. Highly experienced musicians reported more frequent and intense flow experiences compared to their less experienced counterparts. This suggests that extensive practice and familiarity with the task enhances the likelihood of entering flow state. I think that's pretty obvious, right? That's assumed. They call it the 10,000 hours rule, but I would, highly push back at that. I think it's 10,000 iterations of high performance aspects, high performance skills. And you could be in the gym, for example, a basketball player, and I've seen it many times, and they put up 10,000 hours, but they're just going through the motions. They're not shooting correctly. Like, that's not going to bring mastery. That's not going to help you get into flow state. 10,000 iterations. Iterations meaning the expertise in each repetition. Iterations, the expertise in each repetition to build the myelin in the brain, which is the muscle memory. So the other thing they found is talked about brain activity during flow. So the EEG recordings, this is the brain map, you take QEEGs, the recordings revealed that high flow states were associated with increased activity in the brain's auditory and tactile regions, which are essential for musical performance. Concurrently, there was decreased activity in the superior frontal gyri, an area linked to executive control and conscious oversight. So this pattern supports the concept of transient hyperfrontality, where reduced conscious control facilitates more automatic and intuitive processes during creative activities. Once again, I think that's kind of telling us what we already know. When you get into flow state, you're not thinking in executive control. You're more of the, letting the subconscious take over the conscious. And that's what that's showing here. The conscious facilitates more automatic and intuitive processes during creative activities, or the subconscious, sorry, reduced conscious. We also found the role of the default mode network, known as the DMN. So in experienced musicians, high flow improvisations corresponded with reduced activity in certain nodes of the DMN. The DMN is a network typically active during mind wandering and just basically thinking, creative thinking. This reduction implies that for experts, achieving flow involves minimizing self-focused thoughts, allowing for deeper immersion in the task. Once again, I would contend this is one we already know, where if you're focused too hard on something, you will not allow for a deeper immersion. You have to let your brain be free. You have to be free. And a lot of times when, working with professional athletes, when they have their best games, what they will say is, hey, I just played free. I didn't have any thoughts. I didn't have any worries. I wasn't thinking of expectations. I didn't have any of these things weighing down on me. And I've been very observant in watching kids. And I think this is something we can all learn from. If you watch a kid, I was watching my nephew and he just was locked in on this show. I think it was called Bluey. It's probably a popular one. You guys are all making fun of me right now, but Bluey, and he was just in the zone, like literally could not reach him. He was locked in, not moving, so focused for hours. I was like, how did he do that? But what kids have that adults don't have is they don't have these type of all these worries, thoughts, expectations, things running through the mind that they have to do, this overwhelmed feeling. They're just present. They're just there. They're just being. And that's what being free is. And that's when you reach your highest level of performance, when you can just be free. So with athletes, professional NBA basketball players that I work with, that's one of the keys that I tell them, play free, have fun and play free is usually the last thing that I text them before they go into the game. Have fun and play free. Seems pretty basic, right? Sounds like something you tell a little kid in second grade recess. Okay, so back to the Drexel musician study. The findings align with expertise release model of creative flow, proposing that a combination of extensive domain-specific practice and the ability to relinquish conscious control enables individuals to enter flow state more readily. So what this says is the study, you cultivate your expertise in a particular field. This is the 10,000 iterations, coupled with training of how to let go during a performance. So you actually have to let go to feel the letting go. You can't just think the letting go. You have to actually do it to be able to do it, can enhance one's capacity to experience creative flow. What did we get there? I would say what we already knew, but it's good confirmation. Let's keep rolling here, all right? So let's just take a step back. Flow state. It's elusive. As we can tell, it's very elusive. You're probably thinking right now, like, how do these studies, how do they really correlate with my life? Great question. Flow would be when you're living your best life. You feel the stress is not high. You're just in a joyful, happy state. You're adventurous. You're on mission. You're connected to a higher power. You're in a grateful state. It's pretty much what essentially the definition of true joy is what flow is. That's what I'm trying to show you here. It's much more than just a high performance mechanism, which it is, but much more. So one more study, and then we'll go to some more actionable points takeaways. I'll tell you more about how this study came to be, more of Mihály Csikszentmihályi and Stephen Kotler's thoughts on flow too. So this study was done by David J. Harris, Samuel Vine, Mark R. Wilson, and it is called the Neurocognitive Mechanisms of Flow State. So let's see what they pulled up here. It said attentional focus. I found that during flow, individuals exhibit heightened focus on the task at hand, leading to deep task absorption and diminished awareness of external distractions. Yes, kind of, sort of, focusing on one thing, kind of like we're talking about, just being present. That's where meditation comes in and what I call meta-visualization, where you're focusing on the one thing, but you're also visualizing it. Meditation is, it's kind of... I don't know. What do you think of when you hear meditation? I always, when I've done it or thought of it, and to me, it's a connection with the higher power. But if you're visualizing where you want to go, you can get the benefits of both worlds of what I call meta visualization. So, continuing on here, effortless performance. This is key. It's a central paradox of flow, is experiencing and performing challenging tasks with a sense of ease. I take that step back here because Stephen Kotler, who's kind of like the leader in flow state as of now, says that you have to have something challenging and something difficult for one of the first triggers of flow. And I don't think that's true. I don't think you have to have something difficult to be in flow. You can be in flow when you're driving and you've drove 8 zillion times. It doesn't have to be that kind of difficult to enter it. That's what this is suggesting as well. Effortless performance. Hypofrontality hypothesis talks about the obviously the hypofrontality prefrontal cortex, a region linked with self-conscious thoughts and promoting just automatic thoughts and actions and performance. So that kind of going back to what we said earlier, the prefrontal cortex in the brain. Just kind of skimming here to give you the main points. And in conclusion, this study and just basically underscores the importance of attentional process and the experience of flow, and it advocates for just, the neuroscience in the brain, what's going on, the different levels. And you heard Rachel earlier talk about what the ideal zone for flow state is for the brain waves, and that's where up training and down training come into play, the adrenaline. And it's such a hot topic now to talk about, the serotonin, the dopamine. Those are kind of these words that get thrown around a lot that are really hot. I think we can take that to another level, and we will be taking that to another level with this study of how to uptrain and downtrain your brain waves. I don't think anybody's talking about that. That hasn't been done. And in this flow code study, we do exactly that. All right, I'll back up a little bit here. Hopefully you're still with me, hanging in there, excited about what's to come. And you can kind of see that flow state is, we're just talking about the brain, what it is, what you feel like when you get there, just like the athletes have said, but no real hey, here's the steps to do it. And the steps are in the flow code study that's coming out. So I won't be able to actually give you those steps right now, but I will at some point, very soon, once the study is finished and we have all the results. So Mihály Csikszentmihályi, I think that's the best I've said it yet, pioneered the concept of flow. He was kind of the first guy in the 80s. Highly focused mental state conducive to productivity and enjoyment. So what his definition is flow is a state of complete absorption in an activity where time feels distorted, self-consciousness disappears, and the experience itself becomes rewarding. Ooh, I like that a lot. I like that. It's often described as being in the zone, where actions feel effortless, yet they're fully engaging. So his characteristics, he has 8 characteristics of flow. Clear goals. The task has to be clear, purposed, and structured. Immediate feedback. Continuous real-time feedback that helps guide performance. Balance between challenge and skill. The task is difficult enough to engage, but not so hard that it causes frustration. It's about 3% above where your normal skill level's at. intense concentration, deep focus on the present moment. 5, loss of self-consciousness. The ego fades away, leading to pure immersion in the activity. 6, distortion sense of time. Hours may feel like minutes due to deep engagement. 7, effortless and autonomy. Actions flow seamlessly without deliberate thinking. 8, intrinsic motivation. The activity itself is rewarding, independent of external rewards. I would agree with those. I think those are really good. Now, it's still very ambiguous in my opinion, and I think a lot of others would agree. Like, okay, well, that's good. We know those are kind of the frameworks we have to set into and be inside these lines to get into flow, but how do we get there? So then we go on to this guy, Stephen Kotler. He's got some books out there, Becoming Superman and Stealing Fire. Kotler is a leading researcher, has identified 22 flow triggers. That's kind of his thing. Takes it another level, how individuals enter and sustain a state of flow. The triggers he has are divided into 4 categories: psychological, environmental, social, and creative. So here's his triggers. Basically what triggers are like, hey, do these and you can get into flow. Psychological triggers, individual based. 1, clear goals. 2, immediate feedback. 3, the challenge skill ratio. 4, concentration. Those are essentially what Mihály talked about as well. Environmental triggers, ways to get in it, through setting up your environment. Rich environments that are complex, novel, and unpredictable, stimulate engagement. Deep embodiment, being physically immersed in an activity like surfing, dancing, something you have to really be immersed in. It heightens flow. High consequences. Activities with real stakes or consequences increase focus and intensity. Interesting. I don't know if I agree with that one. Okay, now we're going on to social triggers. These are group-based. These triggers involve collaboration and dynamics within groups to achieve collective flow. Shared goals, close listening, active, present listening fosters deeper collaboration. Blending egos. Team members set aside egos, focusing on the group or the individual. Yeah. Familiarity. There's trust. Always say yes, encouraging ideas, building on them. I mean, I think these are pretty basic. Creative triggers, inspiration-based. This is number 13 of the 22 cues. Novelty. So novelty is exposure to something new, stimulates dopamine and curiosity. Complexity, tackling multifaceted problems, encourages deep focus. Unpredictability and pattern recognition. Complexity and pattern recognition kind of fly in the face of each other, but we'll keep it rolling here. Miscellaneous triggers, these are just on their own. Autonomy, you have control over your actions. Intrinsic motivation, like Mihály was talking about. Risk, taking calculated risks, heightened focus. Deep work, yeah, that's what Cal Newport talks a lot about. I would agree with that. Engaging in uninterrupted, focused work. You can't have distractions or notifications or different browsers up if you're working on your computer. Serious concentration, creating a distraction-free environment that promotes sustained focus. And flow-stimulating environments, surrounding yourself with people and places that encourage flow. Creative spaces, nature, etc. Well, what do you think? So if you are still with me, hopefully you are, you've heard the grandfather of flow, Mihály Csikszentmihályi. You know what? I'm going to go work on that. I need to work on his last name for sure. How he introduced flow. You've heard Kotler take it to another level. You've heard some of the highest research studies ever done on flow state, and still, there is no answer of how to tap into flow state more regularly and stay in it longer. Isn't it crazy? There's no like, do this, here's the formula, work on this. This is going to upregulate, downregulate your brain waves. When it's very apparent that there is a level of the brain that is quote unquote flow state. And that's what Rachel was talking about. That's what we're finding in the study. The flow code study is going to be revolutionary and groundbreaking. So excited for it. So can't give you the formula yet. Like I said, I would love to, but due to the regulations on the IRB scientific approved study, I just can't right now. But I'm going to take you back to the start of what flow state is all about and why you should be so excited about it like I am. Flow is the unlock to live your best possible life with the best possible rhythm. At its simplest point, that's it. It's the unlock to live your best possible life with your best possible rhythm. It's the gateway to adventure and joy. Flow is the ultimate state of being an effortless connection to a higher purpose and deeper joy. It's the calling to adventure where life becomes more than just movement, it becomes meaning. Flow allows us to align with a higher power, seamlessly living out our purpose with effortless effort. I love that. Effortless effort. You're free. Flow is a calling to adventure. Flow is a dance in the now. Life's bounty is found in flow. Flow is mastery. Flow is perfect love. Thank you. More to come. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where it came from. You can go find another episode just like it right here. Come on. You can click it. You know you want to.